The village's board of trustees after multiple members did not attend tonight's meeting.
Tiffany Henyard, once a dominant force in Dalton's local leadership, now finds her grip on power rapidly deteriorating. What began as whispers and rumors about her governance has escalated into a full-blown political and legal crisis. Henyard, who once proudly carried the self-proclaimed title of Queen of Dalton, is now facing widespread criticism as her administration sinks deeper into scandal and controversy. The latest blow to her authority came with the leak of explosive footage, allegedly from her own team, sending shockwaves through an already fractured political career. Henyard's tenure has been marked by a steady stream of poor decisions, but her most recent move was particularly revealing. After a Board of Trustees meeting was abruptly canceled due to low attendance, Henyard proceeded with significant decisions without the board's oversight. In what many considered a brazen act, she appointed a new village administrator and made several legal appointments, actions seemingly aimed at solidifying her own control over the town's administration. These decisions, made in the absence of the trustees, were widely perceived as a desperate attempt to avoid criticism, while others saw them as defiant moves that further eroded any remaining trust in her leadership. The Illinois Attorney General's office swiftly condemned Henyard for violating the Open Meetings Act, not once, but twice, first in June and then again in July. This triggered a state investigation into her administration, adding even more legal pressure to the growing criticism from residents. As if the allegations of legal misconduct weren't enough, Henyard's approach to governance has raised additional concerns. Her increasingly tight grip on power was evident in her excessive security measures at Village Hall. Although Henyard claimed that heightened security was necessary due to a vague and poorly substantiated threat, many residents saw it as a thinly veiled excuse to control public access and shield herself from mounting backlash. Public meetings, which should have been open to Dalton's citizens, became exclusive affairs, closed to all but a select few, leaving most residents feeling excluded from the very government that was meant to represent them. Critics quickly pointed out that Henyard's actions appeared to be more about maintaining control over her administration than ensuring public safety. Some accused her of using the so-called threat as a tactic to suppress dissent and silence opposition. Public interest in town meetings plummeted, with fewer than 20 residents attending recent announcements that were supposed to be important. This drastic drop in attendance signaled the growing disillusionment among Dalton's residents, who were increasingly fed up with Henyard's unstable leadership. As her grip on power weakened, Henyard made yet another controversial decision by appointing a new village administrator and legal counsel, both of whom seemed more focused on preserving her authority than addressing the town's mounting issues. Henyard's blatant disregard for the public's concerns was seen as yet another symptom of her deepening leadership crisis. Once regarded as a leader with the potential to bring positive change to Dalton, her actions have now led to widespread disappointment and resentment among the community. Meanwhile, Henyard's inner circle is shrinking, and her relationship with Keith Freeman, once a loyal ally, is unraveling in spectacular fashion. Freeman, who had been Henyard's right-hand man for years, now finds himself at the center of a legal storm, facing multiple charges, including bankruptcy fraud. He is accused of concealing assets and falsifying his income. As his legal troubles mounted, Henyard began to distance herself from him, claiming that his actions posed a threat to her political future. Despite their long-standing collaboration, Freeman's increasingly isolated position within Henyard's administration only highlighted her own instability. The tension between the two reached a breaking point when Henyard attempted to fire Freeman, allegedly fearing that his cooperation with federal investigators could expose her own alleged misconduct. Freeman's deep knowledge of Henyard's secrets made him a dangerous liability, and her decision to sever ties with him was widely viewed as a desperate attempt to salvage her crumbling political career. Freeman, however, did not go down quietly. He argued that Henyard's attempt to fire him was unlawful due to a lack of quorum at the meeting where his dismissal was discussed. His defiance only added to the drama surrounding Henyard's administration, but Freeman's troubles were not the only source of Henyard's growing problems. His legal woes included accusations of retaliation against employees who refused to support Henyard, further undermining the administration's credibility. As Henyard distanced herself from Freeman, she also found herself entangled in a wave of lawsuits from former employees accusing her of wrongful termination. These legal challenges further fueled the ongoing public relations nightmare that had come to define Henyard's leadership. Despite mounting legal and political pressure, Henyard has shown no signs of retreating. Instead, she appears to be doubling down on her defiant approach to governance, making even more controversial decisions in an attempt to consolidate power. For example, her insistence on bolstering security at Village Hall after a barely credible threat seemed like nothing more than a diversionary tactic designed to distract from her growing legal troubles. As the crisis deepens, Dalton's residents are left wondering just how far Henyard is willing to go to hold on to power. With investigations intensifying and her administration facing increasing scrutiny, the town finds itself at a crossroads, grappling with the fragile state of its leadership and the urgent need for accountability. Tiffany Henyard's questionable leadership style has done little to inspire confidence in the community. Public sentiment has shifted dramatically, with more and more residents questioning her ability to lead. Once a popular figure, Henyard is now seen as a divisive and erratic leader whose actions appear more focused on self-preservation than the well-being of Dalton. Her failure to secure the support of the Board of Trustees or maintain loyalty from her closest allies only deepens the perception that her administration is in a state of disarray. Henyard's desperate attempts to reorganize her team, including the controversial appointment of Keith Freeman and others to key positions, have only fueled suspicions that she is working to replace potential opponents with loyal supporters. At the same time, the growing controversy surrounding Freeman's involvement in her administration has raised serious concerns about the depth of her corruption. As federal investigators close in on Freeman, speculation has intensified that Henyard is scrambling to shield herself from the fallout. His potential cooperation with authorities has made him a pivotal figure in the unfolding drama, and many believe he may hold critical information that could expose Henyard's alleged misconduct. Despite her efforts to control the narrative, Henyard is losing ground on all fronts. The legal challenges, combined with the public's growing disenchantment with her leadership, have left her increasingly isolated. Internal conflicts within her administration, most notably the breakdown between Henyard and Freeman, have further eroded her credibility. Her attempts to sideline Freeman, once one of her most trusted allies, have only drawn more attention to the dysfunction within her leadership. In addition to Freeman's legal troubles, Henyard is facing mounting scrutiny over her handling of taxpayer funds. Allegations of corruption have surfaced, and many Dalton residents are questioning how their money is being spent under her leadership. As financial and administrative troubles continue to pile up, it has become clear that Henyard's once promising tenure has spiraled into chaos. The fallout from Henyard's actions is spreading beyond Dalton. Her reputation has been severely tarnished by legal battles, public outrage, and internal strife that have consumed her administration. As the community grows more vocal in its criticism, pressure is mounting for Henyard to step down or face even more serious consequences. Her appointment of Freeman and other controversial figures to key positions has only reinforced the perception that she is clinging to power in a desperate attempt to avoid accountability. At this point, Henyard's leadership appears to be hanging by a thread. The lack of support from the Board of Trustees, the growing number of lawsuits, the public's diminishing faith in her ability to govern, and the legal pressure surrounding Freeman all point to an administration on the brink of collapse. Despite her best efforts to maintain control, Henyard's authority is crumbling. It remains to be seen whether she can weather the storm or if Dalton will demand a change in leadership. Henyard's fate is now inextricably linked to the political and legal battles surrounding her administration. Her once loyal allies, including Freeman, are now turning against her, and the public is demanding answers. As the scandals continue to mount, it is unclear how much longer she can maintain her position. One thing is certain: her reign, once seen as unassailable, is now teetering on the edge of collapse. The story of Tiffany Henyard's leadership in Dalton serves as a cautionary tale for any leader who becomes too entrenched in their own power. Her attempts to suppress dissent, manipulate the political system, and control the narrative have only alienated the very people she was meant to serve. As legal and political challenges continue to mount, it seems increasingly likely that her time in office is coming to an end, leaving Dalton to pick up the pieces of an administration defined by scandal, incompetence, and betrayal. Henyard's efforts to maintain control over Dalton have become increasingly desperate as her administration faces mounting opposition and legal scrutiny. In a move widely condemned as an attempt to consolidate power amid her declining influence, she has tried to replace key officials without the necessary approval from the Board of Trustees. However, despite her unilateral decisions, Freeman, the IAE village administrator, has managed to hold on to his position, largely backed by the board in his resistance to Henyard's actions. The deadlock between Henyard and Freeman has left her in a weakened position, but her refusal to relinquish authority has only deepened the crisis. Recently, she held a town meeting without the Board of Trustees, openly disregarding their role in governance. This move is consistent with her previous actions, in which she has been accused of undermining checks and balances and acting with unchecked authority. The implications of Freeman's alleged cooperation with federal authorities are significant. If he possesses concrete evidence of Henyard's misconduct, his continued presence in the administration could pose a serious threat to her already fragile leadership. The growing perception of Henyard as a desperate leader clinging to power at all costs has fueled frustration among residents and legal observers, casting even more doubt on her ability to govern effectively. Throughout her tenure, Henyard has faced accusations of mismanagement, ethical violations, and abuse of power. Now, with her administration on the brink of collapse, Dalton's residents and leaders must decide whether they will allow her to remain in office, or if they will demand a new era of leadership free from scandal and corruption.